I'll just quickly give you a snapshot of what these amazing founders do. They are disrupting the fintech industry. They are building rockets, and they're making finance accessible to MSMEs, to vegetable vendors, to the informal sector. So the kind of innovation, it's just mind-blowing, and they've done it in a very, very short period of time. So a very warm welcome and thank you. We look forward to having a very interesting conversation with all of you. Actually, I'm going to begin, by requesting them very quickly to sum up their startup story in less than a minute. So let's begin with you, Puneet. Kaleidofin is providing access to finance and helping the informal sector economy players such as vegetable vendors and so on save money and grow. So tell us, why Chennai? Why did you pick this genre? And what's been your biggest learning so far?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Shweta. I actually began my career with ICICI Bank, started in the area of offering financial services to low-income households, built that business for 5 years, and then at certain point of time started to feel that finance is a very, very basic capability that needs to be available to everybody. When you look at the India as a whole, you start to see that over 90% of the country is an informal sector. These are customers who, in order to even earn their living, need some access to capital. Most people are self-employed. They need to set up some business to be able to start to earn. So finance becomes really, really critical. At some stage, I started to feel that we need to make a dent to this entire access to finance piece. And I moved from Mumbai to Chennai in 2006. Ever since then, Chennai has been home. This is Karam Bhumi now. Chennai is kind of a place which was exciting for us because of 2 or 3 reasons. This has traditionally been a place where finance, specifically the non-bank based finance, has taken up in a big way. But for me, another special reason was that I was able to connect with a business school called IFMR. And we started off our first operations there. I set up something called the IFMR Trust, which has now built 2 big businesses called Dwara Solutions and Northern Arc Capital. And then in 2017, we started to see that the world was changing quite a bit. In India, we started to see that technology, Aadhaar, mobile phone penetration was all improving access for customers. And we started to think that now we can offer finance at scale using some of these opportunities. And I moved on to then set up Kaleidofin. So that's been my quick journey, but Chennai is Karam Bhumi.
And how many players in the informal economy have you worked with so far?
So we work with today 40 different entities. These are spread over different states. We have operations now in 14 states through these partnerships. The idea for us has always been to say that if you are dealing with the informal sector's customers, they're not going to be the first people to take a mobile phone, download your app. So we needed some kind of an assistance. And we started to look at partners who were already reaching out to customers so that we can partner with them and then build scale.
Okay, all right. You asked me to call you Raj, so I'm going to do that. Raj, my boss is also called Raj. So go on.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Raj. I'm founder of Aquaconnect. I represent a niche industry called aquaculture. Right? Aquaculture is nothing but growing fishes and shrimps in the controlled environment, like in the pond, in the marine cages, right? So you'd be surprised to know that India is the 2nd largest producer of fish and shrimp that is like grown in the farms, right? We are the largest exporter of shrimp.
So Raj, let's talk about your journey. Why did you think of getting into aquaculture, and did you get access to finance? Just quickly tell us about your story. Yeah.
Sure. So I'm a small town boy. I went to IIT Kanpur, and when I passed out, I joined IT conglomerate. And a few years later, I thought like I should be finding a startup. So that's when I founded a first tech startup, and then I moved on to this. And currently, what we are doing is we are working with about 60,000 farmers who are producing fish and shrimp. And we are enabling, technology assistance for them to improve the efficiency of their farming. That's first part. The second part, we are enabling market linkage to them. And in third, we are also enabling finances for them so that they would be able to do their business in a much better fashion.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Duraisamy, Veritas Finance is doing some exceptional work in getting access to MSMEs, funding access to MSMEs. Just very quickly, tell us about your story. Why did you choose this particular area?
Yeah, thank you. I'm a management graduate from Institute of Rural Management, Anand, where Puneet also is, comes from. And after having about more than 2 decades of experience in financial services, working in Cholamandalam Investment Finance Company, me and my colleague, some of my colleagues, Ms. Prakash Rai and Suchin, and we all started thinking about getting into socially relevant financing. So, but 2015 April, Veritas was born, and we are just about 6-7 years old. And this about 6-7 years, I think we have made a significant impact into the MSME financing. We fund people who are otherwise have to depend on the local moneylenders, what typically is known as Kanduvadi. And we make interventions to typically reach out to the vegetable vendors, fruit street vendors, and kirana shops, pharmacies, and service-related industries. Today we have presence in over about 8 states. We started off in Tamil Nadu, and we are in about 8 states. We have lent in this last about 6 years more than 2,000 crores, and we have reached out to more than about 70,000 customers. And we have been, we started in 2015. Today, we are a 2,100 crore old company. Yeah.
Fascinating. Moin, you want to quickly tell us about Agnikul, the rocket you're trying to build? Tell us about your story. You're very young. You started out very quickly. Why did you choose to go to the path of entrepreneurship?
Sure. So, just like every other engineering graduate, didn't know what to do in life. Then went and pursued MBA in aviation management in Australia and was working in Qantas for some time. And I have a very niche interest in the space law. For example, here we are monitored, controlled by a set of frameworks and guidelines. Now this question always lingered, who is actually controlling the space? And then the answer also came up with it. Today, when we started, there were around like 6 or 7 countries in the entire world that were spacefaring nations. And nobody else was doing it. And in the US, NASA was the only name that you would have heard before in 2010. But today, you will hear SpaceX more than the NASA. So there was a paradigm shift in the people's approach about the space itself. Everybody wanted to democratize. We also wanted to do exactly the same thing. Make space accessible for a common man. That's exactly what we wanted to do. We wanted to make sure that even the agriculture can use space as a platform. Logistics can use space as a platform. Pretty much every industry should start using space as a platform. And that's where the idea came in. Like, first we need to bridge something between the earth and space. And that's what Agnikul does. If you have any payloads, if you need anything that needs to be put into space, so today satellites do that job. Anything that needs to be done, Agnikul is your right business.
Okay. All right. So here we've got you a quick snapshot of what each of the businesses are doing. Let me begin with Puneet. Puneet, we have been talking about the unicorns. I was saying that startup founders are, okay, I wouldn't say like Bollywood stars, but there is a lot of clout and everyone wants to be a founder and entrepreneur. What are the things that you feel are important to know before you move on to this path of entrepreneurship? And as a country, what are the things we need to do to build onto this ecosystem of nurturing startups? So this is a question for each one of you. As soon as Puneet can speak about it, and then all of you can contribute to it.
So the part to entrepreneurship is never going to be easy. The point is that there are not too many people who come out and start new businesses. But I would say that it is in general a very, very exciting journey. So if you are a person who wants to persevere, if there's a problem that you hold as an important problem and are willing to dedicate 8 to 12 years of your life, I think a lot of businesses will start to emerge from some of this. To my mind, what we are seeing right now as unicorns are entities for whom we did not hear much about for the first 15 years of their life. And it's really those 15 years of effort that is now starting to kind of pave way into what we are kind of witnessing. And my sense is that this is going to increase. India is a land of opportunities. We are one of the largest markets anywhere in the world. Everybody wants to be here, so why not? So it was always going to be only a matter of time. To my mind, entrepreneurship requires a certain kind of environment. We are today in a situation, and we heard the previous panel, we were talking about skilling, we were talking about several other things. I would say that the first thing that hits an entrepreneur is that in a country of 1 billion people, how do you find the right software developers? How do you find the right people who really can take this to scale? So a lot of work there. But more importantly, what I would say is something that we miss a little bit is just the ease to attract capital. We, as a country, are not a country of very, very rich individuals. We are starting to see unicorns now. Most of the capital comes from outside. A lot of regulators dislike foreign capital. Indian capital is at a premium as opposed to foreign capital.
So I want to come in here. You know, all of you've raised funding, right? What was your experience like when you went and pitched your company for funding? Secondly, how practical is the idea that you start making money to fund your business? We have seen startups that have done that. We have the Kamath brothers that have done it with Zerodha. And so there are examples like that too. So, you know, if you could address both these points and maybe through personal anecdotes, maybe, you know, you could tell us a little bit about getting investors for a fintech startup, for instance.
Yeah, it's working. Okay. No, basically, you were talking about becoming unicorns and startups and getting in. Fundamentally, an investor does not look at funding based on someone. It's not about wealth creation. It's actually value creation. It is fundamentally if we can find a problem that you are going to solve, and fundamentally if you are going to make an impact in large segment of people, if it's going to make a huge impact, it is scalable, it's going to be potentially game changing, then these are the concepts, these are the ideas that the investors are willing. So money is available. I don't think the investors, on one side there are investors who are looking for ideas, and there's on the other side people who have ideas, and so it's actually very, very easy. The only thing is when you are looking for investors, you need to be very, very clear on 2-3 things. I think it's about solving a problem. It is about scalability. It is about doing something. We have taken it upon ourselves. I think while we are doing this, we'll also do something socially relevant, meaningful. So it could be, there are areas, there are avenues. It could be fintech, it could be healthcare, it could be education, it could be software, it could be rockets, it could be aquaculture.
Okay. So all of you have chosen Chennai. Why did you choose this city? Why did you choose this state? Puneet, you were in Mumbai and then you moved here. Why?
In my case, it was an opportunity. I was 26 when I started to think about setting up the first business. I had no money, no bank balance, don't come from a rich family. So when I spoke to my boss to talk about the fact that I want to start something, this person asked me, how are you going to do this? And I really didn't have an answer. So what he told me was that, why don't you go to Chennai? There's a business school there. They'll give you a faculty cabin. You'll have to take some classes on finance. But the good thing is you'll also get a lot of students to start to work with you as management trainees. And I would say that free is good when you have nothing in your pocket. So I came to Chennai. And once you come to this city, this is an amazing place to be. This is a place where a lot of people want to come back. A lot of senior people want to come back to this particular place. So human resources at a senior level becomes very, very interesting to kind of bring on board. The city is one of the few which has been able to preserve culture. We still have a very, very successful music season. Although I would say that for me, these were very attractive. When I look at youngsters, they're looking at fun, they're looking at Bangalore, they're looking at pubs, which does become a bit of a challenge. But otherwise, Chennai is just amazing.
Okay, but from an entrepreneurship perspective, what can Tamil Nadu do to further build onto this growth story or growth momentum that has started in Chennai? What would you like to see the government of Tamil Nadu do? There is a startup cell that the Tamil Nadu government has. Why don't you take this, Raj?
Thank you. Okay, when we first started this company, I got a call from government of Andhra. Right? So as soon as we registered the company and they saw the aquaculture, so Andhra is one of the largest producer of aquaculture fishes, right? So they reached out to us, and then they said, like, why don't you open up the shop in Vijayawada, right? So if you could, give employment of about like 40 people, then these are the shops that we can, provide it to you. So that's the only state that reached out to us at that point of time. So what I'm expecting to see from the state of Tamil Nadu would be something like, outreach, improving the outreach on reaching out to the startups. So we need to be like, promoting startup success officers or something like that. Like when you are in the customer success stories, what we have is like customer success officer, right? Each customer success officer would be holding about 10 customers, and they would be like start interacting and then ensuring their success. The same way, what I'm expecting, the government should, reach out to their startups, because startups are already, handling too many things, and we are talking about, young folks and then trying to, achieve something. So they have like lots of, compliances issues, right? As a startup, we would like to, focus on the business, whereas what we are expecting is like we would like the government to, come forward and reach out to us and support us.
Okay, how many compliances do you have to run a startup in Tamil Nadu?
Currently, we have about 40 plus compliances that
Across,
we deal with.
Across what categories?
Like it starts from, fire department to ESI, PF,
Okay.
and there are lots of things that I haven't gotten to know before I got into this business. But there are plenty of compliances. Since we are funded, we are able to manage it efficiently. But if we are bootstrapped, then it's going to be a lot of mess for us.
Okay. Access to capital. Moin, let's talk, let's bring you in here. You incubated the whole company at IIT Madras. Why IIT Madras? And what would you like to see Mrs. Stalin do for you?
Building rockets is a large infrastructure requirement, and that requires a lot of capital. Being a startup, so today we speak only in terms of small scale industries, medium scale industries, and then you have the big scales, right? Startups are still just like here. This is my perspective, but I would like to be like proven wrong here. The idea is still startup is more towards about like either coding or software or something like that. When it comes to something realizing hardware or realizing something called as what we call it as a deep tech ecosystem, that takes a little bit of back foot. And that's something that should first change across the state itself. More hardware startups should be valued at par with the software startups, because that is very much required. Because I think the fundamental approach is the minute you see a hardware, there's a depreciation value that you put to it. But that's not the only perspective to look at it. So value creation in hardware startups in deep tech ecosystems should be given more importance. And for example, like even when we start raising funds, talking to people here about like, the question is, how is hardware going to scale? So software scaling is with respect to human resources. How is hardware going to scale up? So these questions require large infrastructure requirement. That's where the government could come in, provide us that kind of like an infrastructure where we would be requiring a lot of compliances, things that needs to be addressed. Because once the hardware scales, you employ more people because you have to run the operations at that level too. So from no point, you just directly go from startup to a big conglomerate or a big industry. Rather than taking that small scale or MSME, the step-by-step process is avoided. So it's binary. From startup, you go to a full scale. So okay, that's the shift that should be addressed together by the government is the ask.
Okay. I want to come to the fintech space, and we have two major players in the fintech space. Fintech is a sector, it's booming. There are a lot of companies in the NCR region also. Bharat Pay is in the news for all the wrong reasons. Paytm is just listed. So there is a lot of excitement and buzz around the sector. But is the Tamil Nadu government doing anything to encourage the fintech space? And what are the challenges that you feel that the government can address?
No, see, before even coming into fintech, let me tell you, in terms of the financing, MSME financing or reaching out, and I think Tamil Nadu is one place where every single financier has a presence. I think they may not have a presence in other states, but I think everyone, whether they started in North, whether they started in East, or they started in West, the first state they reach out to is Tamil Nadu. because Tamil Nadu repayment culture is excellent. There is a requirement for money. There is repayment is very good. The law and order is fine. I think the climate is fine. The support of all the other missionaries is working very well. So fundamentally, I think as a state, it is progressive and it is very, very supportive for a financial segment. And in terms of the fintech, I think it is going to rule the way we are going to reach out to the finance to the people, and it's going to make it a lot more easier. So the digital is the way forward. But I think the only challenge that all this fintech will have to face is that how are you going to use digital intervention to ensure that your credit does not suffer. Because it's not about lending without seeing them. It's about lending without understanding them. Okay, you don't have to see them, but you have to understand. So as of now, we use a lot of algorithms to understand them, which actually kind of, it goes through a trial and error mode. But I think we will all evolve, and I think technology and finance, when they both work together, I think it's a matter of 1,000 days from now where actually the world will see an entirely different lending actually.
Okay, but what would you like to see, from the government's perspective? What would you like to see them do to encourage, or would you like them to do nothing?
No. Yeah, in fact, what you said is right. So as long as the government allows the organization to thrive on its own, it's wonderful. But I think what we have to manage, as Raj was saying, is a plethora of compliances which the startups or fintechs is kind of not enabled. I mean, they are not equipped to handle. Actually, today we have some of the archaic, regulations that one has to put up with, which comes from the age-old manufacturing mindset. Now, today, ESI, you have to pay them this, you have to give them so many days of leave, Shop and Establishment Act. If I go to my office, you will see one notice board which has some 100 notices of which nobody reads anything. We also don't understand anything because the way we handle, way we treat, way we employ people is a lot different from those laws. Actually, probably.
So there is a startup cell that the Tamil Nadu government has started. Has that been of any help for all of you?
Yeah, actually, Puneet can probably answer. I think, it's a very, very short time frame. So before they even say startup, you have come out of 1 year or 1.5 years. So you are no more a startup in the sense that has been.
So it's a 1 year tax break that you've been given. Yes, Raj, go on.
Yeah, see, as I mentioned before, it's the outreach. See, the policy level we are really good at right now, and it's the outreach that is missing right now. Like, we need to treat startups like our customers, right? Because they are creating the value for the state. So we need to be like reaching out to them, ease their pain points. So that's what is missing right now. At the policy level, I really love it, what they are doing right now. It is just that we need to, bring in that kind of a culture saying that you are my customer and I am, placing a customer success officer. Each officer will be handling like 20 different startups and ensuring that they are getting everything right, right?
Okay. When you say policy level, you love it. Any specific policy that you personally have really benefited from?
Unfortunately, no, because I'm getting to see the changes right now only. But see, as I mentioned before, like we first got the call from a different state to set up the offices, right? So right now what I'm trying to see here is, for us, no, but for the young entrepreneurs, I want to see that like they are being reached out by the government officers and serviced.
So Moin, do you feel like you're like the most sought after person in Tamil Nadu right now?
Not really. There are multiple startups that are doing, right? We have an IIT Madras incubation cell and the research park that houses pretty much nearly some 1,300 startups, if I'm not mistaken. So what we have like clusters of bases, right? And if the government is, I think they're already starting to work with these cluster bases, but the awareness should come to a person who's wanting to do a startup to either join these clusters or join to the government, and they can connect us back to these clusters. So there could be some kind of a relay that could happen before a product or an idea is validated itself. So the purpose is like, as Raj was saying, like, you're supposed to create awareness to people and say that yes, the state is standing behind your idea. So that kind of first confidence that if an entrepreneur gets, and after that it's more about like solving the problem.
So let me be the devil's advocate here, right? you all decide to go venture completely on your own, you're disrupting, you're innovating, all of that. Why do you want the state to stand behind you like a big daddy? Why?
Okay. So three perspectives to it, right? So but I'll just answer in one. The compliance is one, we never know when we are going to be knocked on the door. We don't want that kind of like, risk in our hearts. Like it could be very transparent, said, yes, there's no objection for us till today. Because majority of the notices or anything, they come for something 1 year back. So which we don't even remember what happened at that point of time. So instead of doing that and having a clean chit every month saying that all your compliances are done from the government itself. So that erases that kind of a fear. So that we don't want them to be the big daddy. We really want them to say, yes, you've done your work. And acknowledgement in a form of sense. So that's the first request that we have.
You said 3.
Yes, I'll stay with the other 2.
Yeah.
So the second part is like, when we already know that the state is supporting us, it doesn't need to be only in terms of financial needs. It could be in terms of like, a kind of a loan that could be given. That is a financial, but I mean a land that could be given for a few times or some kind of a rebate for R&D particularly.
Like a mini startup
like
city
a mini
or
startup
something.
city or something like that. Or you have a nodal officer who can actually pretty much solve your questions. For example, if you need a police clearance to, for example, just to do a test launch. So I've ran at least to 5 to 6 police stations and to the DRO, RDO, pretty much everyone, not knowing what to do. So at the end, it still goes back to the IIT Madras Direct and that happens again. So we are just trying to find out if this could be like kind of done by the startup itself, saying that yes, so this is a startup of Tamil Nadu. This is actually clear.
That's a lot. That is a lot. To go to police stations to get an approval, that's a lot.
So that's something.
Puneet, would you like to add to this? And I want you to focus specifically on Tamil Nadu.
Yes. So, I just wanted to also draw attention, especially for fintechs, that Tamil Nadu just introduced its fintech policy. And I would say that it's actually pretty fantastically done. There is a thought paper which is out there, and the government is engaging with people like us to see how can they make it better. There are, of course, challenges in terms of who does it cover, who does it not cover. But I would say that the government has started to do stuff in this direction. They've started to take steps, which is actually quite good. What we like to see in addition to this is continuity. The startup policy is a 5-year policy. We like to see it to be a 15-year policy because, again, it takes that kind of time to be able to build there. Things like FSI, which has been mentioned here, for us, once we need to get to a level where we start to buy land, build, and that doesn't happen in 5 years effectively. So there is a part of that. The second part that I think which is going to be very helpful is for the state to demonstrate that it's serious about startups, fintechs, and businesses in general. We've heard about the fact that a finance city has been on the cards in Chennai for a pretty long time. And I think something like that starts to add credibility to any founder here in the state to say that the state is serious about doing something like this. It gets the attention of investors to say that there is something that is going to happen here. And I would say that we don't really need the state to come in and do a lot of stuff for us. And I would actually say that even compliances and others are practically the first 2 years challenges, right? First, you've gone through the extreme bootstrap mode. You can hire resources to do it. But what really becomes critical is to be seen in the hub. Today, a lot of investors who speak to me ask me the question to say, why do you want to be here? Why not in Bangalore? All software is in Bangalore. All their offices
I was going to come to that, yes.
All their offices are in Bangalore. So today, actually, I'm trying to defend Chennai as opposed to saying that I'm in the best place possible to be able to set this business.
So what does Bangalore offer that Chennai doesn't? Yes, right.
Cooler climate.
Cooler climate.
Else apart from that.
As Puneet had mentioned, like we don't have that kind of a pop culture here like the youth would want. And there are some concerns about the climate as well as the culture, language largely, right? So, but again, I have a concern on promoting a city, right? So Tamil Nadu has always talked about equitable distribution of wealth and equitable distribution of resources and opportunities, right? So we should not get into that kind of a rat race that like my city is better, right? We should be, giving this opportunity, like even, you need to take it district-wise, put up some clusters, and that's where we could, see the equitable, opportunity for the whole state instead of, promoting Chennai as the next destination.
Okay, right? That's interesting. I want to talk about access to talent, right? Chennai, Bangalore, this is where the IT talent is. What's been the experience? As in, Puneet, you were making a point that you get a tax break of about 50 lakh rupees in the first year. Okay.
I was only talking about the fact that under most startup policies for capital,
Right.
typically governments are basically saying that as a part of the policy, you can get up to 50 lakh rupees of equity contribution.
Equity contribution.
So
Okay.
for a startup, that's basically what I was talking about.
Right. So, but the talent is also expensive, right? Here. So, is talent coming by easily? And is the state and are the educational institutions skilling, all of that coming together to churn out these graduates that will be absorbed and are needed in these startups?
So my sense of that is that we can have a full topic of discussion to be talent, and I think we are in a situation where we can always have more people. The thing is that with the startup culture, especially given the fact that Bangalore has a lot of startups, there's a lot of need for tech-based resources, and data science is actually big in most of the kind of jobs today. Average compensation expectations are very high. And when you start to look at it as a 50 lakh rupee of equity available in terms of startup policies, that number seems dwarfed out. You're typically hiring a person with 3 years experience at a compensation of 30 lakh rupees in these fields. So
Is that an experience all of you identify with?
There are different sectors just like that. In rocket science also we have particular departments. For example, a special niche is definitely required there. And when you start focusing on that particular skill set, you will see a range from only above 25 lakhs.
Oh,
So-
and that's Chennai.
And you'll be able to find that across. See, my only perspective here is lot of the people in Bangalore are also from Chennai, right? And getting them back here has to be more convincing only in terms of financials. There's no other way to actually bring back the talent here. So I would say we are actually a kind of an export hub for talent. Let it be sending
So
people
you're losing talent to Bangalore.
Yes, we are not only losing it to them, we are sending people to they have MS programs that have to be done in US or in UK.
Yeah.
And so majority of the fine talent that Chennai produces, right, or for example, the entire state produces, you'll see majority of them actually going abroad to do their masters because for some weird reason, there's a B.Tech is not sufficient even at the household level. You need to have an M.Tech done or you need to be a master's degree. And that has started the parents have percolated this thought to the students. And maybe students have also started looking at the perspective saying that my friend is in US, I also need to be in US. So the purpose for them, for the people to start their careers itself is only starting at 24 these days. Where else, I think in the last 20 years or before, you had people jumping right out of the college to start their career. So this 2-year gap that we create, right? And by the time they come back, so financially we have to pay 3x for that same talent because even in masters you learn just a particular focused area.
Sure.
The application of skills, because of their age has increased, you are compensating in a different way. And that is something that is supposed to be changed. It should be more towards of application towards of master's program. Something that will be benefiting the society as well, and then and the academics is also coming together in it. So we have MS by research that is being specifically done, or PhD programs that can be I think IIT Delhi has recently started that if you have a startup, you get a PhD degree. So all of these things are starting to come up. So
Okay, interesting. So I
pushing
think,
talent in that.
my key takeaway is that at a time when, we are looking at the economy coming back, it's trying to come back to normalcy, we need jobs, and it's the startup founders who will be creating jobs, and policymakers have to keep pace with the changing business environment and the changing needs of running a startup. Not specifically a big business, but a startup. So the needs are very, very different. Very quickly, just one suggestion each for the Chief Minister who will be speaking later today. And we will be playing this entire event out on our platform, across our platforms. So 1 point each from all of you before we conclude.
I would basically say that a longer fintech policy, and if we can make tangible steps to setting up the finance city, that will be amazing.
Okay. So 5 years not enough, do a 15-year policy. Okay.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, it's the branding and outreach that matters to, promote Chennai as a startup capital or Tamil Nadu as a next big destination for startups. So I wish we take up that
So
one.
reach out to reach out to startups across the state.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Duraisamy.
Actually, we have been front runners in the manufacturing. We have more than 50% of automobile production here. We have manufacturing, excellence. All of this. I think now is a stage where I think we are lagging behind a little because of our own preoccupation, probably with manufacturing. So I would say, I think the entire mindset, if we can shift, I think we have to be service, sector focused or service sector enabling. That's where the growth is going to come from, and I think that we need to capture. And we have everything going right for us in terms of people, talent, climate, everything in the state. I think our entire focus, if we say we want to be supreme in service sector, enabling service sector to achieve supremacy, I think that one mindset will change. It will bring in a lot more focus on.
Okay, so rethinking development. Giving
into
priority to service-oriented
service.
sectors.
Absolutely.
Okay. Moin.
Startup hardware ecosystem, a common set of equipments, machineries to be put for people to start using them,
Plug and
start
play
creating
model.
an output. So that will be the first request.
Okay.
And then once a startup is actually growing, following them up and making it, the digital shift could also be done by the government by providing land and by providing other facilities that are required. Constantly following up.
All right, long list for Mr. Stalin, right? Thank you so much. It was a fascinating and a very, very, I think, authentic conversation. Thank you for all your inputs.